Imagine you're rushing to work. You hear a police siren blaring in the distance, and you start to panic because, you're running late.
Oh, absolutely. And on top of it all, you just feel incredibly lethargic because, well, it's a Monday morning.
Right. But in just those 5 seconds, you have unknowingly invoked a murderous mermaid, a goat-legged woodland god, and, the literal river of the dead.
It's such an incredible realization when you really stop to think about it.
It really is.
I mean, we're constantly walking around speaking a language that's just inhabited by ancient deities and tragically cursed kings and vengeful nymphs. We just don't notice the ghosts in our sentences anymore.
And that is exactly our mission for today's deep dive. We are unpacking an incredibly fascinating collection of research that details 10 everyday words that you probably use all the time, which are derived entirely from ancient Greek mythology.
Right, because we typically give credit to famous authors for expanding our vocabulary, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we know Shakespeare is responsible for hundreds of new words.
Oh, for sure.
We know Charles Dickens gave us suitably Dickensian creations. And if you have ever chortled at a joke, you were actually inadvertently quoting Lewis Carroll.
Which is great, but those literary additions are, relatively recent in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, good point.
What we're exploring today is how the ancient world's contribution is far more deeply ingrained in our daily lives. These aren't just clever coinages from a few hundred years ago.
Right.
These are foundational myths, like the literal ways early humans tried to make sense of a terrifying, chaotic universe that somehow morphed into the completely mundane language of our modern world.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to start with abstract concepts. I want to start with the most tangible, physical manifestation of myth in our world.
I like where you're going with this. Maps.
Yes. If we go back just a few years before smartphones, we all used to keep these heavy, spiral-bound books of maps in our glove compartments.
The atlas.
The atlas. And I'm just stuck on the sheer absurdity of how that naming convention actually happened.
Well, it's the physical weight of the world, quite literally.
Right, because in Greek myth, Atlas was the son of the Titan god Iapetus and the brother of Prometheus.
Exactly.
And according to the most famous tales, Atlas fell afoul of Zeus. So Zeus condemned him to hold up the heavens on his shoulders for all eternity.
Which is a remarkably brutal punishment.
It is.
Yeah.
But how does a tortured celestial giant become, a book of interstate highways?
It comes down to a brilliant piece of 16th century visual branding, actually.
Wait, really? Visual branding?
Yeah. Fast forward to the 15 and 1600s, when elaborate books of maps were first being printed. Publishers needed a compelling cover image, a frontispiece, to sell the book.
Oh, I see.
The famous Flemish geographer Gerhardus Mercator is generally credited as the first to really do this. He placed an image of Atlas, physically supporting the Earth on his shoulders, right on the cover of his map collection.
Okay, I understand using an evocative illustration, but the leap that happened next is what just completely blows my mind.
People stopped calling them books of maps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They completely stopped calling them books of maps and just started calling the object by the name of the guy on the cover.
It's wild.
I really want you, the listener, to grasp how weird this linguistic shift is. It would be like if a celebrity endorsed a product so successfully that their name just absorbed the object.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Like imagine walking into a waiting room and asking the receptionist if they have any Oprahs you could read.
Right, it is genuinely that level of cultural hijacking. What's fascinating here is how visual branding in the 16th century essentially rewired an ancient theology to create a modern noun.
Yeah.
The image of Atlas was so striking, so resonant with the idea of encompassing the whole world in one heavy volume, that the Titan's name just devoured the identity of the book itself.
Wow.
The mechanism wasn't academic at all. It was just incredibly effective marketing.
So Atlas gives us this physical image we can see and hold. But early humans weren't just influenced by what they could see, right?
No, not at all.
They were deeply affected by what they could hear.
Yes, this is where we move from the physical to the auditory. The ancient world was dark and full of completely unexplained noises.
Which brings us to words that originated from highly specific ancient soundscapes. Words like siren and panic.
Two of my absolute favorites.
The story of the siren from Homer's Odyssey is deeply ingrained in pop culture. Odysseus and his crew are sailing home, and they have to pass the island of the sirens.
Right, these monstrous, half-female enchantresses.
Yes, but their weapon wasn't claws or teeth, it was their singing. It was so unthinkably beautiful that it enticed seafarers to just crash their ships right onto the rocks.
And Odysseus, being ever the tactician, finds a loophole.
Because he desperately wants to hear the song, but he prefers not to die?
Exactly. So he has his crew stuff their ears with wax, rendering them completely deaf to the danger.
Good leadership.
But he has himself physically bound to the ship's mast. Driven by his own intense curiosity, he can hear the singing, but he's physically restrained from altering the ship's course or jumping overboard to swim toward his doom.
And today, we still use the word to describe a fatally tempting woman or a siren song for an enticing but ruinous prospect.
We do.
But here's where it gets really interesting. How does a beautiful, irresistible voice turn into the blaring plastic alarm on top of an ambulance?
That is a brilliant example of a mechanical shift in language.
Okay, tell me about that.
In the early 1800s, inventors created a new kind of musical instrument. It operated somewhat like a pipe in a pipe organ, producing this very solid, continuous, piercing tone, and they named it a siren.
And because that continuous tone could cut through ambient noise, it got adopted as a warning sound on ships to cut through the fog.
Yes, exactly.
Then it eventually jumped across to mean any device that produces a loud emergency announcing tone. But the irony here is just massive.
Oh, it really is.
The mythical siren was an enchanting song that you desperately wanted to go toward. The modern mechanical siren is a grating, terrifying alarm that signals you to run as fast as you can away. It is a complete 180-degree flip in human reaction.
It's an inversion of reaction, sure, but not an inversion of power.
What do you mean?
Both the mythical and the mechanical siren command your total, undivided attention. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, both siren and our next word, panic, represent our ancestors trying to process the unexplainable audio terrors of their environment.
Right, like the lure of the dangerous sea for sailors.
Or disembodied sounds in the dark woods.
Which brings us to Pan, the horned, goat-like Greek god of the woods, pastures, and shepherds. He famously played the panpipes.
Right.
And the research details that Pan was believed to be responsible for creating these mysterious disembodied noises in remote, isolated places.
Sounds that could unnerve absolutely anyone. I mean, Pan was said to cause entire herds of livestock to suddenly take fright and scatter in all directions for no visible reason.
Here's total chaos for the animal.
But it affected humans, too. He could cause even the most steel-hearted people to suddenly feel deeply ill at ease and terrified when isolated in the wilderness.
But wait, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of an ancient shepherd here. When a flock of sheep suddenly scattered, did they actually believe a literal goat man was hiding behind a bush snapping twigs?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Or was Pan already just a convenient metaphor for the feeling of sudden fear?
This raises an important point about how early humans processed anxiety. To the ancient mind, those two things were often indistinguishable.
Really?
Yeah. Before we understood the neurobiology of the fight or flight response, or even the bizarre acoustics of dense forests, we needed a face to put on that sudden, icy spike of irrational terror.
So it was a coping mechanism.
Exactly. They didn't have the clinical language of adrenaline and anxiety. They had gods. Over centuries, the proper noun Pan slowly lost its capital letter and drifted into a general term for that specific type of groundless fear panic.
Okay, so the ancients used myths as a tool to explain external fears. But as we dig deeper into this history, they were arguably even more precise when capturing internal psychological torment.
Oh, without a doubt.
Let's look at a cluster of words dealing with doomed love and vanity. We have echo, narcissism, erotic, and tantalize.
This is a heavy-hitting psychological quartet. Let's start with echo and narcissism because their stories are permanently intertwined in Ovid's Metamorphoses.
Yeah, so Echo was a mountain nymph, an Orad, and she makes a catastrophic mistake.
It's a huge mistake.
She gets on the bad side of the goddess Hera, the queen of the gods, and Echo's crime. She kept Hera detained in long, rambling conversations to run interference and cover for Zeus, who was sneaking off on his romantic escapades.
Which is a guaranteed way to incur divine wrath.
Obviously.
But Hera's punishment isn't just physically destructive, it's psychologically surgical. She deprives Echo of the ability to initiate conversation entirely. Echo is cursed to only mindlessly repeat whatever has just been said to her.
I want to pause on that because that is incredibly dark.
Very dark.
She doesn't just lose her voice, she loses her agency. She is trapped in a state of eternal reaction. And it gets so much worse, because then Echo falls hopelessly in love with this beautiful young man named Narcissus, the son of the river god Cephissus.
Right.
But she can't tell him how she feels. She can only repeat his words back to him.
And Narcissus completely ignores her anyway.
Of course he does.
Because he is entirely enamored with his own reflection in a mountain spring. He is mesmerized by himself. He just sits there at the water's edge, staring until he pines away and transforms into the flower that bears his name.
Wow.
And Echo, completely brokenhearted by his rejection, also pines away until absolutely nothing is left of her except her repeating voice.
Such a bleak story.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated by how this ancient tragedy made its way into modern medicine. How did narcissism go from a cautionary tale about a mountain spring to a diagnosis in a therapist's office?
It's a perfect example of language filling a void. In the early 1800s, thinkers and writers started using the term to describe a fatal obsession with one's own appearance. By the early 1900s, the field of psychiatry was rapidly expanding. Clinicians were trying to map the human mind, and they recognized a specific pathology.
People who are self-absorbed.
Yes, patients who were debilitatingly self-absorbed, lacking empathy, completely trapped in their own reflections, so to speak. They needed a clinical term. Narcissus was the ultimate, universally understood case study, so the psychiatric literature formally adopted narcissism.
The Greeks really had a monopoly on the language of desire. I mean, even the word erotic comes straight from this pantheon.
Oh, absolutely.
Eros was the Greek god of love and desire, often described as the son of Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty.
A literal family business of vocabulary, considering Aphrodite gave us the word aphrodisiac.
Yeah, exactly. But I want to move to the last word in this psychological section, because it reveals something completely hilarious about human nature.
Tantalize.
Yes, tantalize. From Homer's Odyssey, we meet Tantalus, an ancient king of Lydia. Tantalus angers the gods, and his punishment is iconic.
Truly iconic.
He is made to stand neck-deep in a pool of water, with the branches of a fruit tree hanging right over his head.
But the mechanics of the punishment are just brilliant. He is eternally hungry and thirsty.
Right.
Yet every single time he dips his head to take a drink, the water recedes into the ground. Every time he reaches up to grab a piece of fruit, the wind blows the branches just out of his grasp.
I really want you, the listener, to think about the last time you wanted something you couldn't have. A promotion, a relationship, a house. The frustration of it being right there, but untouchable.
It's agonizing.
The Greeks didn't just throw Tantalus in a fiery pit. They gave him highly personalized, deeply ironic torture. It is the ultimate depiction of agonizing, unfulfilled proximity, which gave us the word for tormenting temptation, to tantalize.
It validates that specific human frustration perfectly.
But here is the kicker. Not only did human beings make his name a verb for psychological torture, but we literally turned him into furniture.
We did, yes.
In the 19th century, a Tantalus became the nickname for a locked liquor cabinet.
That's right.
The specific kind where the expensive bottles are clearly displayed behind glass or metal bars, but only the person with the key can actually pour a drink. It is a hilariously mundane, modern manifestation of a mythical king's eternal curse. You are basically subjecting your house guests to the wrath of Zeus.
It shows a wonderful sense of historical irony. These stories endure so powerfully precisely because they are the original blueprints for human neuroses.
Definitely.
Unrequited love, toxic vanity, unattainable desires. We reach for their names because no one has ever described those feelings better than the Greeks did.
So Tantalus became a locked box for Grandpa Scotch. That brings up a broader question about how meanings drift over centuries. Because while some of these words kept their core emotional truth, others were totally hijacked by history. They went completely rogue.
Oh, the path from ancient Greece to modern English is full of switchbacks. Sometimes a word takes a massive, destructive detour, entirely losing its original identity.
Let's talk about hectoring. To hector someone today means to behave in a bragging, swaggering, or intimidatingly arrogant way.
Right, bully.
If you are hectoring someone, you are harassing them. You're bullying them. But when you read Homer's Iliad, Hector, the eldest son of King Priam of Troy, is the complete opposite of a bully.
He is undeniably a noble figure. Homer presents Hector as a loyal son, a dedicated companion, and a brave, highly principled fighter defending his city.
Yeah, there is no swaggering cruelty to him at all.
None.
So what does this all mean? How does the ultimate good guy become a verb for being an arrogant jerk?
We have to trace the word to 17th and 18th century London. During that era, there were gangs of rowdy, violent young men roaming the streets, harassing citizens.
Ugh.
And in a bizarre attempt to legitimize themselves, they decided to label their gangs the Hectors. They essentially co-opted his brand, imagining themselves as these gallant, untouchable models of masculinity.
They thought they were heroes.
Yeah.
But everybody else in London just saw them for what they actually were. Unpleasant, intimidating, violent loudmouths. This is absolute linguistic identity theft. I was thinking about this, and I want you to imagine if a bunch of modern internet trolls started calling themselves the Gandalf Gang.
That's a terrifying thought.
Right, and their entire existence was just leaving the most toxic, harassing comments on forums.
And they do it so aggressively and for so long that society associates the name entirely with the behavior.
Yes. 300 years from now, to Gandalf, someone just means to dox them online. History completely ruined Hector's reputation.
It perfectly highlights a terrifying truth about linguistics. A word's meaning is ultimately decided by the masses who use it, not the person who originated it.
That's so true.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we see a similar, though less malicious hijacking with the word chaos.
This one is a massive conceptual shift. Originally, ancient Greek writers used the word chaos to describe the vast emptiness of the universe before the world existed, or the deep, empty abyss of the underworld.
Yes.
The Greek poet Hesiod explicitly personified chaos as a primeval emptiness, a void, which eventually birthed darkness and night.
The defining characteristic was absolute nothingness, an empty room. But as these stories were passed down, a later Roman poet named Ovid stepped in and completely altered the trajectory of the word.
What did he do?
Ovid didn't describe chaos as a vast emptiness. He described it as a state of wild, unfocused disorder. A messy, conflicted jumble of elements from which an ordered world was eventually born.
So it went from being an entirely empty room to being a room with clothes and trash thrown everywhere.
Yeah.
But how did Ovid's version win out?
Because Ovid's Metamorphoses was massively influential on Western literature, particularly during the Renaissance, writers read Ovid, adopted his definition of disorder rather than Hesiod's definition of emptiness, and that is exactly how we use chaos and chaotic today.
That's incredible.
It proves that storytellers are the ultimate architects of human reality. A single poet rebranded the origin of the universe just by tweaking a definition.
That is an immense amount of power. All right, we have one final word to cover, and it's a feeling we have all experienced on a Sunday afternoon: lethargic.
Ah, yes. Another geographic import from the underworld, much like the original abyss of chaos.
The Lethe was one of 5 rivers said to flow in the Greek underworld. The Greek word lethe essentially translates to oblivion or forgetfulness.
Right.
According to the mythology, the spirits of the recently deceased had to drink from this river as they enter the afterlife.
The mechanism of the river was total erasure. They drank the water to permanently forget their past lives, their past selves, and all their mortal memories, allowing them to exist blankly in the underworld.
But I'm looking at the modern usage, and it's a huge leap from forgetting your entire mortal existence to, I don't have the energy to do the laundry today.
It is a bit of a jump.
How did a river of total oblivion become a synonym for just feeling sleepy?
It's a phenomenon called semantic softening. Over centuries, writers would reference the river Lethe metaphorically when describing someone who is out of touch with reality or deeply oblivious to their surroundings.
Okay, I can see that.
Over time, that sense of total dramatic forgetfulness softened into a description of general mental fogginess. And mental fogginess is closely tied to physical sluggishness. So the river of eternal oblivion gradually drifted into the medical and everyday term for listlessness, lethargy.
Which really takes the edge off of being lazy. Next time I don't want to get off the couch to do the dishes, I'm just going to tell people I've conceptually taken a sip from the river of the dead.
I'm sure your family will find that excuse incredibly compelling.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to reiterate to you, listening right now, that your daily vocabulary is essentially a graveyard.
It really is.
It is packed to the brim with ancient Greek gods, tragically cursed kings, and vengeful nymphs. We're speaking their names, using their torments, and echoing their stories all day long.
Knowledge like this is most valuable when you actually apply it to your surroundings. Because tomorrow, when you hear an emergency siren blaring, or you feel a bit lethargic, or you watch a coworker acting with total narcissism, you aren't just using random syllables.
No, you're not.
You are actively invoking ancient epics. You are participating in a continuous chain of storytelling that stretches back thousands of years.
It makes a trip to the grocery store sound deeply heroic. But I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over today, building on what we talked about with Hector's linguistic identity theft.
Oh, this is a good question.
If a 17th century London street gang could permanently ruin and change the meaning of a noble hero's name, which modern pop culture names or characters are we misusing right now?
Right?
Who is going to become an everyday verb or noun in 1,000 years? And what will it mean? Think about that the next time you drop a pop culture reference. Your words might just be haunting someone's vocabulary in the year 3000.
A fascinating and slightly terrifying prospect.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the haunted vocabulary of Greek mythology. We'll catch you on the next one.